Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Autism Spectrum Advisory Board meeting. Looking at who is on the computer, we can't really see the conference room too well, so I was wondering if we could just start with a quick round of introductions from the folks who are in the conference room, just so we know who's there.
Charlie Mazeau, parent advocate.
Kate Kaufman, self-advocate. Hi, this is Adrienne Mazeau from OPWDD.
And Anne-Marie Peterson from OPWDD.
And this is Alexia Holden, OPWDD. And that's it for who's in the room, but we do have a couple members that will be here shortly.
Okay, great, thanks. That's really helpful. So we were picking up on the meeting from last time where we had some really great discussions, particularly about housing. And as you can see from the agenda there, we're going to have a presentation as well on workforce initiatives. I'll introduce that presenter in just a minute. And also an update on diversity flags. I'm sorry, somebody's trying to speak. Okay. And as always, we'll have time for public comment at the end. Before I kick things off, are there any other comments that anybody wants to make before I introduce our first presenter? Okay. Well, great. It is my pleasure to introduce Adrienne Mazeau. She's a seasoned public service professional with over 20 years of New York State government experience. And I have personally worked with her, so I know that she is outstanding. She currently serves as the Deputy Commissioner of Administration for OPWDD, which has oversight of over 18,000 people in their workforce. Prior to joining OPWDD in the summer of 2021, she was part of the New York State Department of Health's executive team, and she served as the Deputy Director for the Office of Public Health. She also has a significant background in fiscal policy, which is where I first met her, with over a decade of experience at the Division of Budget and the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. So thanks, Adrienne. We welcome you and looking forward to your presentation.
So next slide. So like what you said, I am the Deputy Commissioner for Administration at OPWDD. So in my role, I oversee our state workforce of 18,000 on staff at OPWDD, our facilities, which includes our approximately 1,000 group homes, 100 administrative sites. And then we also have an arm of our team that works on workforce development. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. So for those of you on the phone who can't see my little red box, that's me. Next slide. So today, what I'd like to talk to you about is OPWDD's strategy for workforce development. We all know that we have been dealing with decades-long staffing crisis, and we know that there is not one tool that will fix this crisis, but we've been fortunate with our FNAP dollars that we have a number of initiatives that we've been working on over the last few years. So I was started by talking to you about the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals, our partnership with them, the prevention initiative. Very excited to talk about our SUNY DSP micro-credential, which you may have heard about, and we'll dive into that a little bit. I'm also going to discuss our partnership with the National Alliance for Innovation, Improvement and Innovation. We are working on a DSP workforce technical assistance project that has a lot of really great tools that providers and others can use. All of these initiatives, as fantastic as they have been, we did want to evaluate them. So we do have a contract with the University of Minnesota to evaluate all of our initiatives that we're using dollars. And I'll close by telling a little bit about the new DSP marketing campaign that we recently launched at OPWDD. And then I will leave room for some questions at the end. Next slide. So in New York State, we support more than 125,000 individuals with IDD, and we have a direct support workforce of about 100,000 staff. About 80% of that is made up of staff in the voluntary sector, and approximately 20% is overseen by our own state operations. I'm sure you're familiar with OPWDD, we came out with a 5-year strategic plan recently, and our number one goal, I shouldn't say number one, our first goal, there's not a priority word, but it was to strengthen our workforce, technology, and collaboration, and advancing our service system infrastructure by investing in the workforce. So what we were able to do is we kind of looked at this and we have 3 pillars to how we wanted to invest our dollars into the workforce. Invest in recruitment is a big one, improving our retention, and enhancing the professionalism and competency of our direct support workforce. OPWDD invested over 75% of their ARPA dollars into the workforce. A lot of that was in the form of votes. Next slide. So I touched upon our partners here, and this is just a slide that kind of shows who our partnerships are with. I mentioned NADSP, the Alliance, SUNY, and the Alliance also we work with the Regional Centers for Workforce Transformation, the University of Minnesota, as well as CSEA, and I'll talk to you about that. That's with our state-supported, our state-operated workforce and the credentialing. We've been very fortunate in that we've had a lot of ideas that have been in the works prior to the addition of ARPA dollars and so now, if we want to say there's any sort of silver lining there with some of the things that have happened over the last 2 years, states have a lot of money to invest in some of these ideas that they've been thinking for others. So these are the partners that we're working with. Oh, okay. And is this better? Okay, next slide. So the first initiative I'd like to talk to you about is our NADSP. So one of the things that we kept hearing about is that we needed to professionalize the direct care workforce. They really are the backbone of our service system, and targeted investments were needed in recruitment and retention as well as training. The NADSP credentialing is not a training per se, but it's more of a platform where DSPs are required to thoughtfully think through the how and why they do the work that they're doing. We're doing this through what's called the eBadge Academy. The eBadge Academy allows DSPs to provide testimonials on a series of questions on how they're doing the work that they're doing. It encourages, what we have seen is that it's encouraging providers to really support the DSPs and learn how to support their DSPs through this initiative. We are currently working with about 40 different providers on this. NADSP has contracted with them directly on receipts that we have for these eBadge. This really works to improve the person-centered services that they're providing, enhances communication, and it really has DSPs feeling like I am a DSP, I know what I'm doing, and what I'm role. As DSPs receive these eBadges, whether it's eBadge 1, 2, or 3, we have been very fortunate to have partners that are big in celebrating this. Next slide, please. And I know at OPWDD, we have gone to numerous celebrations across the state where we really honor and value the work that's done. This NADSP convention, it's not easy, and we know that. The testimonials, often, especially when our DSPs are first started, they get denied. And they have to go back and really think through, why is it that they answered a question in the way they did? But when they do achieve those badges and earn their different levels, providers have gone all out on celebrating them. So this is at AHRC of New York City, and that's about Acting Commissioner Little Bears and as well. NADSP has joined us across the state in these celebrations. Next slide. This is at the Arc of Monroe, again, another DSP celebration that we've had. We anticipate having several thousand DSPs that will be certified by the time these contracts are free. What I'd like to show you next is, as part of these celebrations, we did go out and we took some video of DSPs on what made them want to become certified. What was it about this program and this way of professionalizing their field that made them interested? We know when this first started, there was a bonus that was attached. If DSPs achieved DSP 1, 2, and 3, they could earn up to $2,250. So that was sort of the initial incentive. But what we heard and hear from in a minute, many DSPs felt that it was the professionalism that they earned by now saying I'm a certified DSP through this credentialing that made it actually more worthwhile than the financial investment. Many organizations did add on top of the bonus a specific hourly increase if they achieved these different levels of certification. But it was really that sense of professionalism, that sense that this is not an entry level job. And they knew that, we knew that, and now they're being certified. So if you could just go to the next slide. This is just a quick video there. And this is from different providers across the state.
Well, I wanted to become certified because I was always told when you know better, you do better.
I wanted to become certified in this process because as soon as I heard that only a handful of agencies were able to do this and that it was coming down from the administrative level, I wanted to make sure that I set the tone for the rest of my employees, my staff.
To be able to provide the best support that I can, to increase my knowledge of the field and the various terminologies that are changing, and just to be a great staff to whoever I'm providing services for.
It was an opportunity that was presented, and honestly it was like, oh, if you take this, you get $1 more an hour. And I'm like, what? Who doesn't want to give themselves a raise? So that's originally why I'm like, okay, let me try this out. But then when I started earning the badges and learning more about myself in the process and how I deal with things, and I tweaked like how I work with the staff, it just ended up being a great opportunity for me.
So we've been working on this for about 14 years. It's something that I used to go to meetings and help with the code of ethics and things like that. So it's something that I find very important to me and to all DSPs to have a level of professionalism.
Really to increase my knowledge. It opened up my eyes to a lot more trainings that I probably wouldn't have taken if it wasn't for this course. So the knowledge that it's given me and continues to give me is by far awesome.
To continue my career. It's not a job, it's a career. I love what I do. I live and breathe what I do, whether it's during work, outside of work, at home. And to learn a lot, to learn about how I can even be even better at my job and to get more training.
It was important to me because I'm always aiming to better myself. I'm always aiming to learn more, and I really just wanted to get as much knowledge as I possibly could, and I think becoming certified gives me the opportunity to learn as much as I possibly can and continue to learn, and it benefits me while benefiting the people that I supervise on my team and the people that I support on my caseloads, because I'm more knowledgeable, I'm more aware of things.
So as I mentioned, as of August 1st of this year, we have almost 1,800 DSP badges that have been earned across the state. We're working with 41 providers currently. And this is, right now, this is available for both those DSPs that are in the voluntary sector as well as the state operations. I'll talk about in a minute. What we have seen, though, is our partnership with the DSP has spurred an interest across the country. We have had states calling us, asking us how they can partner and develop something like this. They have been so impressed with how we were able to use our ARPA dollars in order to invest in our workforce in this way. And it's exciting because our partnership with NADSP, we've been going around the country presenting on what we're doing, and more states are doing this, and I think it's going to bring more awareness to the DSP field. We talked a little bit about some of the challenges and feedback that were already provided to NADSP, so they're also learning and growing as we kind of move forward on this project. I will say right now, New York State is leading the country in the amount of DSPs that are being certified. Next slide. So again, this is another video I wanted to show you about some of the things that DSPs have been learning about the certification process, and they have applied on the job, because we initially thought this would be used as a recruitment tool. You can come in, you can become certified, there are bonuses that are involved, but what we have found is that it's been more valuable as an retention tool. More staff that said, once they got to sit back, they were given the space to think through why they're doing this, why they're doing the work that they're doing, and how they can make it better for those who don't the facilities. It really helped them stay on the job, work better, work smarter, and it helps providers understand how can they encourage and support DSPs as well. So I guess this is my last video. So I just wanted to show you, this is against the Neurodiversity.
The certification process has taught me a lot, especially with thought structure, like how to present my thoughts clearly in my writing, and made me more conversational, making me be able to think clearly and concisely and get my thoughts across.
I think that by reflecting on past experiences that I had to do for the badges, it has helped me to learn from how I dealt with those experiences so that I could do better.
By taking the credentialing program, it showed you and reminded you of different methods, and that things that have changed, and things that you should be aware of, and things that you should be updated on. And so it just gave me a clearer sense of my position.
It really turned the spotlight back on helping direct support staff understand what person-centered planning looks like, what compassion looks like, and how we as frontline supervisors are in charge of ensuring that they know what they're supposed to be doing, and that they don't come with all those skills. That is our job to help instill them.
So something that, I won't say I didn't know it, it was just something that I feel you constantly have to remind yourself to kind of put yourself in someone else's shoes every day. It's just so easy to become robotic with what we do every day that you can forget, it's easily forgotten, you know, what your role is, how to react to certain situations, how to communicate with even your staff or one of the individuals you support. So kind of putting that plug in the back of your mind to remember what your role is, how to react to certain situations, and that everybody isn't going to be the same reaction. Everybody reacts to things differently, everybody learns and everybody hears things differently. So it's really important just to remember all of that.
I think to bring things that you know back to the front of your mind, to be more aware of why you're doing this job, who's really important. It's not the paperwork, it's not the politics, it's the individuals. And I think sometimes you lose that, especially when you're going through hard times like now with staffing and COVID, and it's just, it brings it back into perspective.
I would say the communication. There's a level of communication that the programs instilled, and that was good. More patient, more giving them the time to express what they want, what they need. And a lot of times I tend to kind of jump in and want to solve the problem. And what I've learned is sit back and listen. So I guess I've become a better listener.
I think one of the most recent trainings that I took was about I can't remember the title of the training, but it was about risk and allowing for risk. And sometimes, especially as a mom, but even as a DSP and supporting people, you know, you tend to want to make sure people are safe and well, we're allowing opportunities, but it is like really taking another look at that and how you approach things, and really just supporting people to live life no matter what that looks like for them and not for me.
It was able to give me different suggestions, like for example, out in the community, it was able to let you know that the young adults should always like have a say. It should always be what they would like to do. You're not choosing activities for them, as well as being able to help them on their goals and things like that. It was able to give you different suggestions on how to complete those certain goals.
There's things that I've learned to do differently that I constantly think about now. I think about the Reliance trainings and I'm like, oh, okay, let me try it this way. I think about the testimonials a lot because that really got me thinking about what is this even asking? I've never done this before. But when you actually sit down and think about it, you're like, I do this every single day. I support people. I am person-centered. I individualize things to them and really make sure that I'm doing the best that I can. So I'm constantly thinking of those knowledge advancements that I got from all of the e-badge trainings and stuff.
I really like this video, so I hope you're gonna, this experience, but it reminds us why we're doing this and why we're working so hard to make sure this credentialing program is.
The certification process.
Next slide, please. So you can go back one.
Oh, sorry.
So I think it's a really powerful videos of powerful testimonials. As I mentioned, we like to celebrate the accomplishments of the DSPs. So in the spring, a former commissioner, Harry Mazeau, and a group of us went down to Long Island to AHRC, Nelson County, where we have the 1,000 DSP credentialed in New York State under this initiative. And AHRC went all out. It was really a wonderful celebration. And so this is just a photo from that. So hopefully we'll have a 2000 celebration pretty soon. Next slide. So we had started with our voluntary providers of credentialing, but just this June, we did launch a partnership with CSEA to be able to certify our state operated and our state employees that are DSPs through OPWDD. We had an incredible initial response of about 2,000 applicants. We started the first cohort in June. We just launched this week in the third cohort, and we plan to bring more and more DSPs on each month. We do plan to have our first celebration here in September. The first few staff that have actually completed some e-badges. You may have heard in the video that talks about Reliance training. A component of the credentialing is not just the testimonials, but it's also an educational component. So many providers use the Reliance platform for their training, and so that's what they were referring to. We worked with NADSP, and our new employee orientation for state operated staff qualified as the educational component. So that's why we had some DSPs that were able to earn their badges pretty quickly. Next slide. So our SUNY DSP micro-credentialing sort of piggybacks and uses some of the elements of the credentialing program, but we partner with SUNY community colleges and other schools across the state. This micro-credentialing is sort of twofold. It is a credit-bearing component where the DSPs will take classes through the specific college that we're partnering with, as well as earn their e-badges through the micro-credentialing. This program has been great for students who, the DSPs who may not have thought college was an option to sort of ease them into this. The tuition is completely free. All the resources that they receive while they're in this program are free. And the credits are stackable towards an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. Next slide. We're currently partnering with 20 different colleges across the state. And geographically, we really are all across the state. These colleges, they have partnerships with providers and state operations in each of their regions. And they will have, where they are having initial events, where they, recruitment events to recruit students into these. And then they're watching and they have student liaisons that work with the DSPs to really help them succeed. This is a tremendous effort on the DSP. Because in addition to their day-to-day work that they're doing as a direct support professional, their own lives just trying to balance family and whatnot. And then taking college level courses and doing DSP and the NADSP credentialing initiative, it's a real commitment on their part. So it is amazing when we have students that have achieved this through this program. Next slide. As I mentioned, we have 20 campuses. I believe the 21st is coming on very soon. We have over 700 students that are currently enrolled in both DSP 1, 2, and 3. Those are the DSP badges. And we're working with over 100 provider organizations. So there's some organizations that are having their DSPs either go for the SUNY track, if that's something they're interested in, or the NADSP credential. The DSP cannot do both because there are bonuses attached to both initiatives, so they would do one or the other. Next slide, please. So in the spring, we did announce an expansion of this initiative. We now have over $50 million that is invested in the year 2030 to increase this partnership. So not only can we potentially increase the number of schools that are involved, but SUNY anticipates having over 6,000 students become part of this program through 2030, which is a really incredible feat. It's a positive for the schools because it's enrollment for them, but it's also a positive for us because it's credentialing and helping to further the professionalism of our DSPs. Next slide, please. So another initiative that I mentioned in our partnership is we've been working with the New York Alliance for Innovation and Inclusion and with Silver Institute at NYU on an organizational self-assessment. So this assessment it surveyed over 4,000 DSPs to provide feedback on how they feel they're doing in the field, how they feel their organization is doing, morale, management. There's a series of different questions. A total of 130 organizations, including our 6 state operation regions, were represented in this survey. The providers did receive aggregated feedback on what their staff were saying and how they're doing. And they are taking that now, and the organizations can take that feedback and make some improvements or changes. Part of the OSA also resulted in a series of resources that were available. You may have heard of the DSP Talk podcast that's out now. I believe they're up to, I want to say 8 to 10 different podcasts. They really are great. You can find them anywhere, Spotify. You should take a look and listen to them. They've also had a series of webinars for supervisory roles. A lot of it is more on the supervision side, as well as the DEIB toolkit, which is another webinar that was offered. This has been really helpful for the field, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, the University of Minnesota, we have a partnership with them to evaluate all of these tools. So they did a study, they did a base level review on the key metrics. They're looking at lessons learned, and by 2025, we would anticipate having a final report that will let us know how have we been doing on these initiatives. We're working now to see how internally we can continue to evaluate the SUNY initiative that will go beyond this University of Minnesota contract. Next slide. This is just giving you a bit about the current status on the baseline report was initially issued in September 23. We've not seen the interim yet, but we expect the final. Slide, please. So the statewide DSP marketing campaign, you may have heard of this, it's called More Than Work. This was a major media marketing campaign like we had never seen sort of in the DSP field in New York State at least before. We have, it's not just a marketing campaign that you can see externally. I know we drove here on 787 in Albany, there is a big billboard. I've seen them across the state, TV, internet, wherever, radio. These ads are everywhere. But it also directs anyone interested in a direct support position. It directs them to a non-governmental website, directsupportcareers.com. On this, an individual can look by county and see all the opportunities that are available to us, both the providers, the voluntary providers, as well as our state operator positions. It just leads them to that website of that organization, and then they can do some research on their own. But it really is a clearinghouse of all of the areas in the state where you can find a position in direct support. If you know of any organization that is not part of this website, they can still join. We have put the email on there, communications office, OPWDD, and right.gov, because we are currently up to about 200 organizations across the state that are represented, but there is always room for more. Slide. So here are just some photos of some of our ads on some of the subways down in New York City. Like I said, I think these are pretty much, we can find them across the state. Overall, we've been pretty happy and successful. This has been a tremendous amount of work that's been done in, I would say, about 2.5 to 3 years, really, to get all of these contracts and to launch all of these initiatives. We are seeing some real results in our, like I mentioned, in retention. We are seeing more awareness in the DSP field as to what is a DSP and how do I become part of that field. So it'll be interesting, and we're excited to share once we have more of the University of Minnesota, the study that they're doing on the evaluation tool. So that kind of wraps up my presentation for now. If you have any questions, you can ask them now, but I will leave that email up. That is our central email to the workforce development team at OPWDD, and always questions as well.
Thank you, Adrienne. Really great presentation. And we also did love the videos. That's the best way to hear from DSPs directly about what they're learning, and also learn more about the difference in the credentials. So thank you for that. Obviously, the DSP workforce is one of the most important things for the system and supporting people on the autism spectrum. I was wondering if any of the committee members had any questions or comments for Adrienne.
Kristen. Thanks, Courtney. So with regard to the NATSB convention, maybe is there a waiting list of staff who want to take it, who have not yet had access to it? So our initial contract was for 2,400 seats, which is licenses. We have found if certain organizations maybe didn't have the interest they initially thought, and a provider was awarded a specific number of seats. So that if they weren't using them, we could move them on. But we haven't had the opportunity to buy more licenses as part of these contracts as well. So there's not per se a waiting list, but there is some moving around. The number was limited. And it's not every voluntary agency that participates in this program. Correct. Is there an opportunity for non-participatory voluntary agencies to come in at something along? It's something that we've been talking about. You know, our ARPA dollars were limited in the time frame that we can use them in. And so NADSP went out with an initial RFP. They contracted with 17 providers initially. We have expanded that to 41. So we have been growing it as we can. At this time, we don't have plans for another RFP, but you know, it is something that we're very much aware of. Can voluntary agency staff go through the SUNY Lakewood credentialing, or is that only for staff? No, that's very low. It's for both. So if I hypothetically were working in a voluntary agency that's not one of the 41, and I have an alternate path, which could be the SUNY Lakewood. Yes. Okay. And is it the curricular is substantially similar? The credentialing aspect, the NADSP e-badges, those are the same. But with SUNY, you're getting college credits and you're taking coursework as well. Okay. And is that both for state operated and voluntary? Yes. So the two participants pay, or is that is completely free? That's true. So that's why that expansion was a big deal. So it's 6 more years of free tuition for DSPs for these classes. What's the duration of the marketing plan? I have seen the ad. I've heard, I've seen them. To get back to it is multi-year. I don't know. I just didn't know that they had a very short time horizon, or if we're going to continue to see aspects of that over the next couple of years. I apologize. I don't have that end date on here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great presentation. My hat's off to these DSPs. I don't know how they do it. It's really phenomenal. But a couple things. One is there continuing ed. Once you get your 3 badges, will there be any kind of continuing ed so that they continue on that path of advanced learning, but more learning? So it just doesn't go flat?
That's a good question. At this point, there is not. We are seeing, obviously more DSP than DSP 1, DSP 2, it kind of fades off as you're getting to 3. We are, as part of the NADSP initiative, we're doing frontline supervisor training, but there is not a continuation, but that is an important something you can take back.
And is there a prerequisite to get any of those badges, like length of time as a DSP, or anyone can get those?
Anyone can get them, but the staff that are more successful have a longer tenure in the field, right? It's hard for someone who's just starting as a DSP to be able to really fulfill the testimonials and to be able to have a depth of work to talk about.
And I am curious, as a consumer, if I'm a parent looking at an agency and I want to know how many of their staff have these badges, is that public knowledge? Can I ask them? Can I ask them that?
I think you could ask the agency. We don't have a public listing at this time.
So I think that would be, as a consumer, I think as you're evaluating where you want to sign or go, I think that would be very helpful.
Registry of sorts, that have been talked about, it is not established yet.
All right, thank you.
Great presentation, thank you. Just a quick question, I think I saw on a slide, just asking to be clarified, the credits earned can also be applied down the road if somebody wants to go associate to a bachelor, like you decide I may want to pursue my teaching certification, so maybe.
Absolutely, and what these schools have really pulled together is a pathway on how you can achieve this through Empire State College, through other means, through other free tuition programs too. And there's a lot, and the schools have been incredibly helpful to helping DSP and students understand what that happens.
Just what's the difference between the TSA?
So a DSA is the New York State Civil Service title. It is Any questions online? If no other board members who are on virtually have any questions, Courtney, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thanks again, Adrienne, and great work to the agency for continuing this program. Charlie, I like your suggestion about thinking about the next phase of this and how people can get continuing education credits. So appreciate that conversation. I think we now are going to switch gears and have a second presentation. This time we're focused on housing. And I believe the presentation is going to be given by Anne-Marie Peterson, who is the Associate Commissioner for the Division of Service Access, Program Implementation, and Stakeholder Support. So Anne-Marie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Courtney. Can people hear me okay? Very good. All right. Well, it's Adrienne staff and go to the next. Just wanted to start today's overview, just give it an overview of our housing, how we're set up in OPWDD with our housing portfolio, and give some information. Kind of categorize our housing, thank you, voting. In two categories, a non-certified housing and our certified housing. I'll spend some time first starting with our non-certified housing. It's important to know that that is really controlled by the person, not the provider. The individual drives the housing where they live, and it's not provider driven. It's not a one size fits all approach. It's very person centered, and the supports that are built within the non-certified housing is really based on the person's needs, interests, and preferences. And it's also based on what the person can afford. In the certified housing models that we'll talk about here in a little bit, it acts residential services based on a person's higher level of need for supports. The assessment is completed through the certified residential opportunity process that evaluates the need, and residential provider agencies offer the supports for those individuals that typically have a higher level of oversight that is required to meet their needs. So we can move through. So as I mentioned earlier, it's really about supporting who choose to live independently in the community, and who meet program eligibility. It's the non-certified housing is really a housing subsidy program, which we can provide rental subsidy to the rent or mortgage assistance. And we also provide the housing subsidies through our integrated supporting housing program. So we can move forward and go through those. So it's important to know that our housing subsidy is fully funded through state dollars. These are not Medicaid dollars that support the non-certified program. This is designed again to support eligible individuals who want to live in their communities in a non-certified setting, that they can live independently within their authorized service amounts. So, we understand that supports and services will often accompany the housing subsidy, but they need to be able, with those supports and services, be able to live independently. They are financially and legally responsible for their housing unit, meaning that they need to be able to sign their rental lease or mortgage. And they contribute approximately 30% of their countable income towards their rent or mortgage, and the offset would be covered by OPWDD. And there is a kind of a cap of how much that we can pay, our maximum allowable amount. And there's varying factors that kind of determine what that allowable amount is. Some of those is if you're single bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment or home, that contributes to how much is allowed for that. The number of people living in the unit also contributes to how much a person
would be available to them. And then the county in which the apartment housing unit is located, each county has its own threshold of what about a maximum allowable amount. So that kind of budget template you might have heard goes into determining what amount OPWDD would cover and what supply should net the percentage. So the another way we have this integrated supporting housing program that has been supported by our governor over multiple years, and that's significant investment in there. And it really combines affordable housing opportunities, support services that help the person live independently. These are typically projects or apartment complexes that are supported in partnership with a housing developer. And that's connected with one of our OPWDD service providers. And not only in addition to the housing subsidies, that the developer can get some tax credits and public funding streams through the application of this. OPWDD provides 25% of the 50% of the funding for the units that are set aside for our individuals. And again, these are integrated supportive housing. So there is a component that the amount of units that we will support will not exceed 25% to ensure that we have integration with the greater community. The provider is responsible that we connect with the OPWDD provider that is awarded these projects, is responsible for doing outreach to find individuals to live in the units and to help them through the process of moving in. Any issues they may have with the landlord, they're there to help facilitate any support they may need, along with their care manager to help set up services and supports they are there to support. So the people that would be accessing these, again, need to meet the income requirements that we talked about previously. They also would be responsible for 30% of the income towards the rent that's associated with it. So we continue to see. So, just in general, before we leave and go to the certified housing, we have close to 7,000 individuals that are accessing the housing subsidies at this time, and it's significant growth. I've been with OPWDD for a while, and I've been this regional office since 2014, and I've seen the growth of our non-certified and housing subsidy go from just approximately 300 10 years ago to almost 7,000 today. So what we've been able to do to grow that this program, and this supports being pushed in, has been significant. And so we're excited about that. So I just wanted to share that. We'll pivot now to our certified residential opportunities. Okay, and these again are provider driven. They really fall under three kind of overarching categories, and kind of wanted to explain that. We first have our family care. Family care are families' homes, private homes that are certified. They work through a provider, either voluntary providers, resident providers, or state operation, that will support its family that wants to open up their home to support individuals. So family care providers go through specialized training, and they'll have support of psychology, nursing, and nutritional service that comes in and works with them to support the individuals living in their homes. These are funded through the home community-based waiver, in that residential habilitation is the waiver service that family care provider provides. And it's a very natural environment that people can support it. Our next are our individualized residential alternatives. A lot of people recognize these as group homes, and We have two subtypes of individual residential alternatives, our IRIS, as we like to call them with our acronyms. We have supportive and supervised. A little information on our supportive. Our supportive IRIS are where we have staff that go into the homes, but they're not there 24/7. They're not always on site. They come in through the week. So they can, they can come in multiple times a week, one time a week, and throughout the month, but they're not always available on site. And then we have our supervised IRIS, which are 24-hour care homes. And they are presented in, home-like environments. You probably would drive by them and wouldn't know, except for maybe the staff's cars parked out, that the homes, are very much part of our communities. And they help individuals access skills and live independently. And these again are funded through our home community-based labor. And then our third option is our intermediate care facilities, our ICFs. And these are what we consider bundled services. They're not funded through the waiver. They're actually funded through our state paid Medicaid program, where all the services are there to avail to the individual, whether they need them or not, right? So they need physical therapy, speech therapy, they would all be included in that. And we have a variety of subsets of programs that can either fall under an ICF or an IRA. I can talk a little bit about those. We have some transitional programs that can either be an IRA or an ICF. We have our intensive treatment options that are sometimes considered like a developmental center that we have some and in Valley Ridge, which is in Norwich, New York, and in Pepper Lake. Those are ICFs for, and then we have our extended treatment units, which are transitional programs from Downham City, from Kings County Hospital. That's at our Bernard Feinstein campus. That is an ICF level of care. And then our most recent transitional program that we have around housing is our comprehensive adult transitional housing units. These are operated by state operations, and they are either IRINs or ICFs in the community, but they are to help individuals transition from typically residential schools or other institutional settings to help them transition into the community. So those are the overall kind of certified residential opportunities that we currently have. And the certified residential opportunities, is important to know that to access those to be accessed through our CRO, our Certified Residential Opportunity Application process. And they're submitted to the Regional Field Office, which is part of SPS, our Service Access Program Implementation and Stakeholder Support Division. The Certified Residential Application comes through, and we utilize a residential needs tool to determine the category level of a person receiving services, and those categories or designations, as people may know them, are emergency need, which are really individuals that are at imminent risk or in approximately the next 6 months in need of housing. There's those that are substantial need that, we often see maybe aging caregivers that know that in the next couple of years that they will need some housing supports for their loved one or current designation. And priority is given at, again, to individuals on the emergency need that are most imminent risk of needing housing. But those designation categories can change. We know that someone may come in and might not be considered an emergency need, right? But life can change on a dime, and we know that. And so at any time they can be updated, and we can reevaluate their designation And those designation categories can change both on the individual status and as important, the family dynamics as they shift or change, those designation categories can be modified. The CRO protocol, like all waiver services, are really focused on trying to ensure the most integrated and least restrictive methods of supporting a person is explored first. And so that is true with the housing options and how we go about trying to identify what's the most appropriate housing option. And the CRO process has been really designed to not only facilitate sustainable housing through through our system for a long time, but to make sure that it's equitably applied and to make sure that those services are accessible. So we can put it to the next slide. So I talked about this being the most integrated, that the CRO team really and the staff that work in the regional field office really try to explore that the least restrictive housing options have been explored. They work closely with care coordination organizations to ensure those options are explored. We manage the resources based on greatest need, as I said, and we get the application, all the documentations. It's really a partnership of how we go about finding opportunities for individuals in need. Really, it drives through the person-centered planning process from the circle of support of the individual that's organized by the care manager. That really drives the types of locations we are looking for a person, and referrals that go out is really driven by that process and understanding the needs. We could no way understand that without getting that information from the person's support, so that's really critical. And I'll talk a little bit more about through the feedback we got on that we're applying into our future development. We take that information and really work with providers to screen the individuals against vacancies that they have, starting with the individuals on an emergency need. But I think that it's really critical to identify that we know and we acknowledge that not every home is is designed to support everybody on the emergency need, and we do successfully support people regularly on the current need. But we start with the emergency need because we know that their housing is critical and it will take 6 months. So that's how we can organize our referrals for students. So we can. So some of the upcoming things that we have is we are in the process of developing a capacity management application. And this is really technology to support kind of the housing continuum that I just talked about. Making sure that there's an efficiency in the way we go about that and try to have reach some goals and value outcomes that we've heard about through the 507 forum and other venues. We really want to improve and build upon what we're trying to do to be responsive to individuals and families and to our housing providers and care coordination around housing. So we want to take the successes that we have and also where we can improve and really hone in on that. And so part of the capacity management application is really to manage workflows, both within the regional office around authorization placements and trying to make sure that we can improve the timeliness of those placements. So how we came to design the capacity management application was really a collaborative exercise. We've been listening and taking notes and getting feedback from a variety of places, and these are just to name some of them. We work with our self-advocates to hear their experience both within our non-certified and certified footprints. We work with the Developmental Disability Advisory Council. They have provided some housing recommendations that we have utilized in our design. We have partnered with our family stakeholder groups and really listened to them. And some of the feedback that we received is that really having more transparency on our housing out there, really having greater understanding of who's looking for housing and when. We've listened to our providers association, and we've had residential provider work groups where they talk to us about how current the referral packets are and the information they need to make sure that they're supporting people well and well prepared. We've taken a lot of feedback from our care coordination organization on how we can be more efficient. And then we've also worked with our regional field office staff and other subject matter experts around housing to design the capacity management application. So to really understand what everybody was looking for, it took a lot of listening and taking that in. And then I want to kind of go over some of the design features that are in process. So if we can go to the next slide. So first thing we want to do, we know that the Pro ADM has been out in draft for some time, and so I apologize for the small print up there. And the capacity management application realizes that it's a pretty impressive ADM, administrative memorandum, and it's really focused on ensuring that it gives guidance to both CPOs, providers, and regional field office on expectations and timelines and how to best ensure appropriate placements. But the capacity management application really drives efficiency in that, tries to reduce any duplication and make ease for the providers and the CCO in the process. So we're not burdening them with additional paperwork. That was some of the concerns, I think, when the Pro draft ADM came out, was that, it seemed cumbersome. So utilizing technology, we can really reduce that burden out there. It will allow us a comprehensive view of both our non-certified and certified housing. And I think that that's something that people were looking for, was to have an understanding of what our whole housing portfolio look like. So this will really give us that information. And one of the things that we have refined is really who's seeking housing. Okay, and our application process, when this goes live, really drives into the person-centered planning in a way that we haven't gotten that level of granularity on who is actually seeking housing. And so the application process will really drive approximately, I think it's between 25 and 30 questions around what a person is really looking for in their housing. That specificity I'll talk about a little bit later, but it really helps us understand who's looking for housing and what their needs are related to that. The other component that it'll also give us is greater understanding of our housing stock. And it's not just how many houses do we have or where those houses are located, but it's how many houses have ramps. How, does the house have a fenced-in yard? Does the house have the ability nursing supports and other kind of supports, and really kind of hone in similarly to the questions that we're asking about the individual, to the information on the house, to know that do we have enough houses of a certain type to meet the characteristics of the people's. So we can put it in the next slide. So again, the process is really one of the key features in the process. As we gain of who's looking for that, as well as what we have, the platform will allow a matching component to really reduce the amount of maybe unnecessary screenings that we might have heard feedback on, or also increase the success of referrals and screenings that occur. We know that it can be traumatic for a person to need a home, want a home, be screened for a home, and be denied that opportunity. That is not lost on myself or anybody of what that experience in potential reduction that feels like. So having a matching system that really tries to have the best chance of success, that really aligns to what the provider is saying they can do and what the person wants, and facilitating those matches is something that we've never had the capability to do, and this application will help drive that. And we see a lot of efficiencies in that information. It will also allow for updates. One of the things that we heard from providers is that, you know, sometimes the information that was received in our application becomes outdated, right? And then they have to wait some time to get updated information from the care coordination organization, or say maybe a life plan's out of date or the physical's not current, right? And they want to make sure they have the up-to-date information. So this will really allow that seamless way to update that information and to update what's only necessary, right? Like, and so on a referral form, you only have to update the elements that have changed. You don't have to complete the whole form over again. You can go into the system and modify what's new, but not have to duplicate previous entries. Sorry. Be closer. I'm usually not quiet, so that's unusual for me. So there's a lot of built-in abilities to really streamline the process, which we believe will improve and increase the timeliness of placements. We can move to the next slide. So that's really an overview. One of the things that we will have, understanding who is there and what we have, and where it will also help us to get to the gaps. We know that housing is very expensive. Right? Homes are not inexpensive. And we want to make sure that we are investing in the best way possible so we can have the greatest amount of services. So knowing where and who is looking for housing, where it's needed and what type it is, will really help us to focus in on where we need to develop more and what kind of homes we need to develop where. So this data set will be extremely useful, and we anticipate that by the end of this year we'll be beginning to implement phases of this application so that we'll have this data by the end of 2020. And I can answer any questions that anybody. I know I've covered a lot of information.
It is quite an array of services, so thank you for the presentation. I guess my one question would be, it may be intimidating, I think, sometimes for families and self-advocates with different options. And I know there's also a lot of new creative options that are coming out in different states. Is there an easy way for a family member or self-advocate to navigate or to help figure out which of these options might be best for them?
So, you know, I would always say that the care coordinator and the care manager should be very useful in helping through the person-centered planning process, talk about the different types and what might be the best option. We are also internally looking at how we can communicate and provide that information, you know, in a manner that families and individuals can gain that information independently and start to digest. So we have a communications process that we're looking at to execute in regards to that. So that's very important. I think how we get the information out is in multiple ways. The regional field office does do training on housing, and we're happy to do that, and we plan to continue to do that. So we can do as much education as possible. We do provide information through our local school transition coordinators. We often are out at school districts and go through programs, meet with families to provide that information. So that's one thing that, especially during transitional years, we try to get the information out. But we will be exploring more ways to make sure that it's informative.
Can you contact her for the words to learn more?
Yes, yes. I can share that with this group. We can share my contacts and we can make sure that.
That'd be great, because I just have a little late on exit 5.
Absolutely.
Sandra, thanks very much for the presentation. With regard to the capacity management application, will it have some features built in that can automatically flag if portions of an individual's application are being updated, for example, that would escalate them into more of an emergency situation? Or is it going to be dependent on somebody actually going in and looking for that and then reviewing it?
So there, in the application will be the ability for them to say that something has changed. So the care manager could go with the application and say, we have an adjustment amendment, right, escalation, we want you to relook at it, and it will built in to immediately flag. But also, even though there's emergency needs, there's even, we even have flags to say, like, I prefer someone that is maybe stuck in a hospital or situations like that, or, high stress that it's imminent risk of homelessness in a homeless shelter, that we have that flag, so that we can address that as timely as possible.
Or someone's family caregiver
Yeah.
going in the hospital,
Absolutely.
having to go into a nursing home, for example, and not returning.
Absolutely, that would definitely drive an emergency need in the high profile.
And Mary, a couple of things, this is something I spend hours on, answering questions, trying to figure out.
And I love talking about it.
Because that's the data of 2 boys with autism, this is the thing that's still keeping me up at night.
Yep.
Where are they going, what are they doing in 24, still have no idea. And I think going back to Courtney's point, I think there is a lack of transparency, because if I am trying to figure out if I want to go certified, very difficult for me to get information about certifying. I'm not allowed to go into the homes. I'm not allowed to really kind of question people about what their program's like. It's very difficult to really judge what's the right program for my boys, because I can't get really any information unless a packet goes to them. They're on the pro list, which they're not. So it's very difficult. The second point, you mentioned about from 300 to 7,000 self-directed people.
Well, not self,
Well,
half and half about. So some, so I want to be clear, our housing subsidy program, you can either get through self-direction or traditional, and we have about 50-50, with that 7,000, about 3,500 are through self-direction, and the other through traditional housing subsidy providers.
it seems the self-direction side will continue to grow for obvious reasons.
Yep.
And more parents are opting for that than certified setting. But there seems to be such a big disconnect. There's self-direction programs popping up all over the place. Nobody's policing them. You have no idea sometimes what goes on in self-direction programs. There's a lack of consistency on what one broker thinks is the right thing to do versus another broker. You get different answers to different questions. And as a parent, you're left confused. And the one thing I saw 2 things. One, that the ones that get the stipend or subsidy are financially legally responsible. That's not the case. My boys are not financially nor legally responsible, but they're going to be in an apartment where they're going to get subsidies, and that's most probably with 3,500 self-directed people. So I don't know. I don't really understand that. And second, 30% of accountable income. They don't have accountable. So I'm just a little confused on why those are even there, because it's meaningless to many of the people on self-direction.
So
Unless I misunderstood.
No, you didn't misunderstand, but I can explain. So the housing subsidy, program is person driven, right? So there is a responsibility, and, their social security, insurance, their SSI income can go towards that, their benefit, that can be countable income, right? But they are responsible, not a parent, not, they are responsible as the tenant signing their lease, and they have to have the capability and understanding to do that. That's a requirement, an eligibility requirement to receive a housing subsidy. That's part of the.
But that's not what's going on. Well, I mean, there is no developer that's going to have a parent not be responsible for a lease for their son or daughter who's on the spectrum. And I'm gonna tell you, there's no developer that's.
Well, we know through the developers that go through our impact projects absolutely do, and they absolutely are. That is their requirement. We wouldn't accept the lease signed by a parent. We will accept a lease signed by the individual with responsibility towards that. That's the requirement of the program. And we do, that's part of the integrated supporting housing project for the developers we work with. They are committed to supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, including those on the autism spectrum. And that's why we have, that's why we work where the providers are there to make sure that they have the supports, to be successful in that they're not out there, in those apartments without a resource. But that's why they're designed. And, to your point that if things are, popping up, I think that's why we utilize, our review process to make sure that where we do give a housing subsidy to programs, that we want to make sure that they understand the responsibility where we have, when we do award and a provider to be associated with them, that they understand their responsibilities and that we can have oversight. Not every program that's out there, takes our housing subsidy programs or, because those are the protections we try to put within the program to make sure that the people we are supporting are supported and not something else.
But I would not want their job. I mean, it's very difficult, so I appreciate
And
the hard work.
I think one of the things one of the DSP said, that housing subsidy program allows a lot of opportunities, and our waiver services alongside them can open up doors. But the more independence, there is the dignity of risk, right? And we do look at that when we are authorizing a housing subsidy. We truly appreciate dignity of risk, but we also want to know that there's that ensure that there's some mitigation strategies that someone's not gonna, there's a difference between dignity of risk and leaving someone very vulnerable, and it's striking that right balance, and that's part of our review process in the application, and we want to hone in on that, and streamline. I think we've heard sometimes we can be slow in that because we're trying to evaluate that, and I think our application and our refinement listening to parents like you, et cetera, helps us make sure we can do this.
Just one other question. Do you think that the 25% rule will ever be rescinded for a number of reasons? Again, living on Long Island, we're even affordable apartments for $2,100 a month. The only way it really, and again, this is talking to developers on Long Island, right? The only way this becomes sustainable financially is by being able to have more than 25% of the population in one area, so you can share expenses, so you can share staff efficiently and effectively. But more than that, so it provides a safer community. I'm deathly afraid of putting my boys in the community in the development with 400 or 500 people, which are what's happening on Long Island now. It's 200 units being built, 300 units being built on Long Island, some smaller. And then putting them in. I have no idea what I'm exposing it to when you do that. And I think the only way to bring it to help that is by allowing more clusters of individuals. And again, it's up to the parents and the families. Maybe some may not want it, some may. And I think it does provide safety. It provides a bigger social opportunity, because let's face it, my boys are not socializing with the residents there. We want them to. It's not really what's happening in a bigger development. So I think that 25% will really inhibit the ability for these young men and women to grow with their peers in the community. So I understand why it was there. It's an old reason, Willowbrook. It's one of the reasons. It's an old reason why. So I'm hoping that OPWDD really changed their thought process and really thinks about the positive points of having more than 25% of the population, not 100%. But more than 25% of the population of one area, economically, socially, and for safety.
And I really appreciate what you're saying, and I think that there has been discussion and there is evaluation on that. I think the critical part is, to your point, is hitting the right balance. I think, you know, we have made strides, over the years of really ensuring that, individuals with developmental disabilities are seen in the community as a productive, important member of society, and when integration is really critical. And so there's always a danger that the more that you cluster, right, and then you lose that integration and you lose that understanding of their importance and how vital they are to the fabric, right? And so I think, you know, I think that is the blend that we're trying to get to, where the 25% came from, is to ensure that, and that it may not naturally begin, but part of that enhancement of skills and integrating with the community, it starts with little steps, right? And setting the right environment helps drive that, and that's where it came from. But I think that it's not so much about the percentage, but looking at, is there integration there, or is it more isolating and doesn't give them as many opportunities? So that's the balance we're trying to strike, but I appreciate what you're saying, because it is balancing safety and opportunity at the same time.
Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate you, please.
Great. Other comments?
Actually, so I have a question about, kind of like the emergency stuff. So with my work, going fires and disasters and stuff like that, a lot of our teams with like the Red Cross and others don't really know, like, so if I encounter somebody who just lost their home to a fire, like, is there any like, kind of like a thing that I can give my disaster responders, where if they encounter an individual who's in one of these programs and they just lost their house to a fire, or where they were living for a fire or a disaster, that we can help get them back into the system with the emergency?
Yeah, so, you know, we have several ways to contact us. Like, so we have our info line, it's probably the easiest that anybody could contact. And it would immediately, someone that, you know, like if we had an EMT or anybody calling and saying that there was a person that they thought, and this was their name, and it would get directed to the regional field office, our housing team, and we would be calling and trying to do the connection, right? And see if we'd be looking up to see if they're connected to our system or what we would need to do. We take those calls every day. And that's a lot of what we do, that when there's gaps, we get those phone calls, and we try to have a turnaround within a day is our have outreach, right? And sometimes we might be leaving a message that day, you can't get connected, but we follow up on every one of those. So that would be the quickest way. If you didn't have information on you, because it would get directed to us. Right?
Yeah, get that, because that's a number we add to our, we actually have a book that we give our responders with resources. So, like, very useful.
Great, any other questions?
Or just to follow up on that, like, are the regional field office staff connected to the local Red Cross chapters and MICE? Do they have, you know, established relationships? Because, you know, it could be a fire, it could be a flood, it could be, like we've seen unfortunately several times around the state this summer, tornadoes, right? Where people are, you know, temporarily, but sometimes on a longer term temporary basis, displaced from their housing arrangements. So I'm just wondering if they have established relationships, and if not, maybe that's something, given what seems to be an increase in natural disasters over the last couple of years, maybe those are relationships to be forged.
Yeah, no, I think that we're always trying to engage with the greater community. I think that we can always do better. I can tell you, like, you know, just because I'm always familiar when there is those natural disasters, and we just had, you know, like, I know we had Buffalo yesterday, but we had Rome not too long ago. We had a situation that came into the info line of, you know, a grandmother, right? And we were immediately like, this is the food bank, this is the shelter. We even had our staff helping them get there, so that they had the food and this safety net that they needed. So they do come to us. But I think to your point, every time we can make, you know, greater relationships, it improves what we do.
Yeah, because that is actually becoming a big thing. So,
Yep.
right now with the current hurricane, not fully moved, I'm actually on leave right now from the Red Cross, but, I know we're still sheltering people from Hurricane Dali. Because part of the problem is that we can't find accessible housing for them, same thing with the Maui wildfires. So we got people who are going normal housing, most of them were able to find housing, but it's that lack of accessible housing that is keeping people, they've been living in hotels for over a year now. Just because there's just such a lack of housing. And, granted, Florida, each time they get by a hurricane, it's eroded away that amount of accessible housing. So that might be something also.
No, and I know that one of the initiatives that we've been working on and been working closely with is emergency planning, and part of the evaluation that we've done since COVID and really worked on, almost every scenario that we can think of, right, that to try to be better prepared and also, looking to roll that out with our providers so they were all thinking in the manner, because you're right that the housing that we need sometimes is unique than just the general housing stuff.
I just saw found a kid who's took longer to get their own housing. We moved out of my parents' house the most. I think part of the problem is housing is expensive. Rentals, I live in Northern Westchester, and the problem is too much. When we talk about disability housing or affordable housing, it's focused on seniors. Everybody wants to put in senior housing, and nobody seems to care about people who are not seniors.
That's why the integrated supporting housing, the ISH projects that we were talking about is really, that was really to drive at that, right? We started doing that, I want to say 6 years ago, I think approximately, right, to develop those out there. And it's where we talk about 25% of the units, but that was really understanding that there is a gap, right? In each year, we try to make better inroads to have affordable housing. I know that Long Island at the 507, there was a lot of talk about that, trying to build more of it down in Long Island to the point.
But then but it not be senior dedicated.
But that's, no,
problem. Yeah, no, because you have this problem that people get into their early 20s, they can't afford. And again, what are you going to do, wait 40 years until you're 65?
Right, no, we don't want that.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
So they're supposed to be in contact with them.
absolutely, I'm gonna come over and do that thing.
Great.
I think there's a hand up there, is that Steve?
Yes. My question is, do you work with or coordinate with Housing Connect and affordable housing from New York State?
We do, that's part of where our ISH goes through, right, like that we have a connection with them in our housing unit, but we, in the regional field office, it's after those approvals are granted that we put in, but through our service access program implementation arm that we use ISH projects, they are connected with them.
Yeah, I mean, I have both affordable housing through Housing Connect, and I have a subsidy through self-direction. So for me, if I'm able to live, with other, especially with other reimbursements. But otherwise, it would be before I had all of that, that was a big struggle financially.
Appreciate that. I'll take that back, Steve. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments or hands up? Okay, well, thank you again, Anne Marie. Really appreciate the presentation. It's important. Housing has been a major focus area for this group, so it's good to see the progress. I think now we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the neurodiversity flag materials. I want to give a shout out to Josh, who really was the instigator for us picking a neurodiversity flag, and we had great representation and voting to get to where we are. And I think Alexia is going to go over some of the materials that are now available.
Yeah, thank you so much, Courtney. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm going to be as loud as possible and speak right into the mic. I know we've been having some issues on that. So we've gotten all the neurodiversity flag materials. The merchandise is finally shipped, so it's really exciting. We have a bunch of flags, 65 flags. They're really high quality, double-sided, really good material, and they have little holes so you can put them on any flagpole. We also have pins for all the members and anyone who would like to request one. Stickers, magnets, and then these really big giant posters where you can see on the other of the table here that say celebrate neurodiversity on the bottom. So we're trying to get all of these materials out to as many providers, self-advocates, family groups, community groups, anyone you can think of who would want one to get the flag out there and support the neurodiversity community. So everyone here, there's a bunch of merch over there and people who sent me their request forms, I have that put aside for you. If you think of anything down the line or you want one shipped to someone you know because they're flagpole and they run an IRA and they want to put it out front, happy to send them that way. We just want to keep track of where we're sending them. So you can send the board an email or myself an email. The board's email is astadvisoryboard@opwdd.ny.gov, which is on the bottom of the slide there. And then Josh and I have been working on a plan to share some of these flags with the governor, mayors of the larger cities around the state, and the chairs of disability committees. We just dropped one off to Senator Manning this morning. His office was very excited to have it. And so again, I just really want to emphasize that if you're watching this meeting and you know somewhere that could use any materials and you're neurodiverse and you would like a magnet, a sticker, a poster, anything, please reach out to the board. We're happy to give it to you if you have a usage for it. And then if I've forgotten something, if anyone here has any ideas on where we can send flags and more materials, please feel free to share.
Yeah, I'm thinking, we have, OPWDD has the great partnership with SUNY with the DSP credentials that Adrienne presented on earlier. And I sit on the SUNY board and I'm maybe thinking that would be a great place, given their campuses and visibility in various areas of the state. And it would, for students at those schools who don't know what it is, I'm sure they would be curious. And so I think that could be another good opportunity. So we can talk about that offline.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any other comments on that? I know that we're about to move into the next part of the meeting, which is public comment. Anything I missed, Alexia, on the agenda today?
I don't believe so. I just wanted to say that the next meeting is November 13th from noon to 2. We are going to be reviewing the board report for finalization and publishing. So folks could try and get that on their calendar. It would be really great to have an engaging discussion in person about the report. It's going to be about 50 to 60 pages and with all of your edits maybe longer. And I'll be sending it to all the ex officios on the board for their input to different pieces that your agency have a part in. And we can go on to public comment.
All right.
So if you would like to speak, please raise your hand and we will call on you. When it is your turn to speak, you'll get a request asking you to unmute. So you have to unmute yourself at that point. At that point, you're going to have 3 minutes to share your comments. I just want to note this is not an answer and question period, so we're not going to be responding to the comments. But if you have a personal story or a personal issue you're going through, I do encourage you to reach out to the board directly or myself, and we can happily direct you to the correct parties. If you're not comfortable sharing those personal details here, I would suggest you do that. So I think we have Diane F first. Should be getting a request to unmute. Or unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. I had put 2 questions in the chat here, and I was wondering first of all, good afternoon, everybody. How does the transition from a supportive IRA to an individual living in their own apartment, and what changes and how does OPWDD assist with this transition? That's my first question.
That's an excellent question. I'll try to answer. So our supportive housing, would be certified. So it's, it would start with an application for a non-certified housing subsidy. Our regional field office each have housing units that could assist. A care manager would assist with the application, or any housing subsidy provider that could be or a fiscal intermediary, if you self-direct, could start the application with you or a loved one on completing an application to go from a supportive to a non-certified housing subsidy. And any questions along the way, we would go through that. So the differences of supports and services with a supportive IRA, like apartment, that the provider, as I mentioned earlier, oversees, and they have supports in there. If you were going into your own apartment, you may be looking at services like community habilitation to assist there. You may be looking at adding supportive employment or pre-vocational supports and services if employment is of an interest. But there's other waiver services that could accompany that housing subsidy to help a person live successfully. Those are just some of the options there, but there's a variety of people that could assist, and I would start with the care manager or a housing subsidy and fiscal intermediary. And if you had trouble connecting with them, the regional field office could guide in that way.
Okay.
Does that help?
My second question was, how does OPWDD find housing for the individuals, and what process are you using to find housing for our individuals?
Can I ask a follow-up question before I answer? Are you talking?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Are you talking about certified or non-certified?
Well, both really.
Okay. So, with a non-certified, first it comes with an application. So we, once we approve the idea of a housing subsidy, we would be having you connect with a fiscal intermediary or a housing subsidy provider to help you find apartments in the greater community. If it's certified, like I mentioned during my presentation, we will be taking your application and the things that are specified as requirements for you in the certified, and we would be matching them along with the information we receive from our residential providers to find matches and have screenings done so a placement can be identified. That's kind of a quick answer, but there's different pathways. In both situations, we work closely with care management organizations.
Thank you so much. That's the 3 minutes. Next up is Lori S. You should be getting a request to unmute shortly. Lori,
This is Lori. Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, terrific. Thank you so much for the chance to ask a question. So I work here at National Disability Institute. I'm meeting people who go through the OPWDD application process for a VMOD, and that staff is telling people that they cannot provide a written statement of approval for funding. And then people go to a car dealer, pick out a vehicle, and then they're told, oh, we can't approve that vehicle, or in fact, we can't cover that much. I think people need a statement in writing so that they know what vehicle is appropriate when they select that. And then our program can provide a loan for the rest of the vehicle's purchase cost at 4% interest, even if a person has no credit history. And then I heard great dialogue about housing for people with disabilities. And I just wanted to bring up, I understand you're looking for a dedicated line of funding that will address the diverse needs of people who need housing across the state. In the meantime, ABLE accounts can help to support people as they purchase a home, rent. Family and friends can deposit money into that individual's ABLE account as well as a trust, or a 529 qualified tuition plan can deposit monies into an ABLE account. Then that ABLE account owner can use those funds to purchase a home, pay for rental expenses, to pay for ongoing maintenance, to make a home accessible, things of that nature. And I think broadly people need to know that that is a savings investment opportunity, and people who participate with OPWDD service system no longer need to spend down funds. They can save it in their ABLE account. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. If you want to send me an email, I can answer more specifically some of your questions related to EPOD and BPOD. I just don't want to take the time during the public comment session. So that's ASD Advisory Board at opwdd.ny.gov. It's also on our website. If you Google OPWDD, Autism Spectrum Disorders Advisory Board, should be the first link that pops up. So next we have Lily T. You should be getting a request to unmute shortly. You are unmuted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
It's a little better. It's a little scratchy.
Oh, I apologize for that. So my quick question was, I wanted to ask, can a sibling live with their one of their other friends? So if the individual has a sibling, can they live in an apartment together or in housing? Is that possible?
I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly. Is the question, can two siblings live together?
No, just one of my individuals living with their sibling. If the individual has special needs, can they live in an apartment together with one of their own siblings?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, an individual can live with a sibling.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, I just want to know, is there a process? Is there a process where if they find an apartment together, that's what I'm saying. And the individual, which is my son, is able to live with his other sibling, that would be very nice for both of them. But that's why I want to, is that possible?
That option is there. That was kind of what I was talking about when determining how much of a housing subsidy we would support. And I talked about the number of bedrooms, the number of people living together, and income. If two siblings were living together, that's possible. The amount of how much we would contribute towards the rent should be adjusted for that, but they absolutely could live together.
Oh, okay, guys, thank you for that option. Thank you so much. Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Tamara or Tamara. Apologize that I didn't the pronunciation. You should be getting a request to unmute. You are unmuted. It looks like we might have just lost the audio on you. Can't hear you if you're speaking. I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds. It looks like you completely disconnected from audio. How about you try and get that working and we'll move on to something else, but you can keep your hand raised and we'll come back to you. So Patricia Johnson, you should be getting a request to unmute. Patricia, you're unmuted. I can't hear you. And Tamara, I think you are also still unmuted on our end, if either of you are able to speak. We just want to give you the opportunity before I move on. Okay. If you want to send the board an email with your comments, I would be happy to share it with members, because it seems like we're having some audio issues for both of you. And that is everyone who had their hands raised online. Is anyone here in public wants to make a public comment? Courtney, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Well, thanks, everybody. I'm really sorry I couldn't be there in person today. But I think it was a really good conversation. The presentations were excellent as usual. And we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting when we will be reviewing the report, and hopefully we'll have a chance, I'm assuming, Alexia, to take a look at that prior to the meeting.
Yes, of course.
All right, well, enjoy the rest of the summer.